but we will never capitulate for these thieves, for this unacceptable criminal occupation. Will end in its entirety because it's against the Almighty, and we will urge everybody, do not be intimidated. You are not anti-Semitic by standing against this rebellion against God.
There are hundreds of thousands of Jews around the world, in the Middle East, in the West, in Europe, everywhere, identify with natural counter opposition to the Zionist ideology, and they feel and believe that Zionism is not Jewish, but it is a political agenda. For more on that, I have with me Rabbi Yisrael David Weiss from New York. Thank you very much, Rabbi David. First of all, I want to ask you about the sign that you have, and you have at the same time the Palestinian scarf, the Palestinian kufiya. What does that mean for you?
Well, as you see, I have it by my heart.
Yes.
It means everything by us, because if you could read, it says a Jew, not a Zionist, and you can possibly read, say, pray for the speedy, peaceful dismantlement of the state of Israel. And that's all that was about. We are Jews. Jews are people of a religion called Judaism, which we are required and made a covenant with the Almighty 3,000 years ago to be subservient to God.
Yeah.
And the Torah, coming all fast forward to today, forbids us as Jews, because we are Jews, to occupy or to steal or to do any harm to a fellow human being. It forbids us to in any way make suffer a fellow human being. And it certainly forbids us to create a Jewish or a so-called Jewish sovereignty as the state of Israel is today. This is expressly forbidden for us, and it would be forbidden even if Palestine would be uninhabited and would not have had the masses and the majority inhabitants of the Muslim and then the second large community of the Christians. We would still in all been forbidden to create a Jewish state, because this is
Rabbi.
not what Judaism is, and I will explain that.
Yes, Rabbi. So I understand from what you are talking about is that the difference is huge between the Jewish religion and Zionism, between Judaism and Zionism. But can I understand that in this context that the existence of Israel as a state is against the Jewish religion?
100%. We accepted the covenant with God 3,000 years ago. God required of us to go up to the land, the Holy Land. And 2,000 years ago, the Almighty decreed upon us the decree of exile with the destruction of the temple. And anybody who looked at the prophets Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, Ezekiel, Isaiah, all the prophets clearly state how the Jews were sent into exile as a decree of God, and we were put under 3 oaths. One of the 3 is that we should not return en masse in large numbers to the Holy Land as a nation. Secondly, we are not to rebel against any nation. We have to be loyal citizens in every country where we reside. thirdly, we are not to make any attempt to re-establish a Jewish sovereignty. So all these three oaths forbids the Jews clearly to make our own sovereignty, and certainly not in Palestine, not in the Holy Land. And to that issue, the chief rabbi of Palestine in 1947 clearly stated in the name of our community, and this was stated to the delegation of the United Nations that came up to Palestine. The chief rabbi at the time was Rabbi Dushinsky of blessed memory, and this is from the United Nations record.
Yeah.
He stated, and I'm showing you the picture you see in the corner.
Yes.
Is rather here. You have the picture is showing where they're meeting with the delegation of the United Nations. A blown up picture of that.
Yes.
Now I'm quoting him. I'll just quote him one sentence of that statement. He said, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine." It was before the United Nations, July 16, 1947, a year before the ratification of the state. Now, this chief rabbi has nothing to do with the Israeli rabbinate. You have a rabbinate. You have a rabbinate that is existing till today. We have a rabbinate that is called the Eid Haredis, God-fearing community. The chief rabbi that was at that time was Rabbi Dushinsky. He represented these. He passed away. Today, we have another chief rabbi who's there for quite many years. This is a picture of when he came up, the other chief rabbi. I don't know if the picture is clear enough, where you see how tens of thousands, and actually it's more than tens of thousands, because this is only in this block where they are, greeting the chief rabbi. His name is Rabbi Weiss, not a relative of mine, but This is the chief rabbi, this Eid Haredis, the God-fearing community. Our community do not accept in any manner, shape, or form the existence of the state of Israel and their rabbinate that they as a facade or just a peripheral, a picture cover to legitimize, to give legitimacy to their criminal establishment of a state. They have a rabbinate and a chief rabbi that they praise around the world, declaring what they're doing is in the name of our religion, God forbid.
Yes, but Rabbi Weiss, but the settlers, the zealous settlers movement that represent themselves as religiously based and fundamental, who claim that Palestine was a land without a people for a people without a land, and Palestine was given to them by God according to their biblical narrative. So how we respond to such narrative by the zealous settler movement here?
Well, that is the whole issue, that unfortunately, although it is very clear to anybody who watches the politics in Israel, will very clearly see that all these the movement of the Zionist state of Israel is clearly a non-religious entity. It is created by people who detested the religion. In Europe, they did this. It was created in Europe, Zionism. It was the whole, almost entirely non-religious. And here's a picture, for instance, by the Declaration of Independence in 1948 in Independence Hall. David Ben-Gurion is speaking. And you can see all people sitting there. Not one of them have the head covered. These are the face of what Zionism truly is. Now, what they do in order to legitimize their undertaking, what they did was that they used the name, the Star of David, they used the name Israel, and they tried to present this as a religious entity, and they ensnare and they dupe the gullible minds of the teenagers and so forth. They've been doing this for these 70 years. They try to present themselves as God's message. But this is despicable, it is unacceptable, and the religious community in Jerusalem and around the world have been demonstrating since the establishment We have been demonstrating in the front of the White House. We've been demonstrating tens of thousands and more. We've been demonstrating in the streets of New York, in Canada, in London, wherever you have invariably a large religious Jewish community, wherever you have a truly religious community, they stand in opposition to this establishment of not just their crime, their atrocities, what the settlers are doing and the Israeli army, the IDF, but what the mere establishment and oppression and the occupation of Palestine. This is unacceptable. It is stealing. It is rebellion against what it means to be a Jew and our covenant with God. We as Jews refuse to serve in their army. We as Jews, because we don't accept the establishment and the existence of the state of Israel, our boys and girls, although they have mandatory service in the IDF, we refuse to serve at the cost of our lives. Can't you see what they do? They arrest young boys and girls. And this girl is carrying a tehillah, a psalm, and she's praying and she's crying. They put on her to demean her, their Israeli uniform, and here you see what they do. We demonstrate, and even young children get brutally beaten. We are constantly demonstrating. Old people, young people get beaten, arrested, and even murdered. Our rabbis are assassinated by the Israeli police. Again, you can go to our site, NK USA, and you will see tens of thousands.
Yeah, Rabbi. So you are talking about the colonial settler state, and you showed me the pictures of the fathers of the Zionist colonial project who started it, and you criticized them, you criticized their project, and just yesterday, Human Rights Watch issued the strongest ever report criticizing the Israeli occupation violations against the Palestinians in Jerusalem and in every part of the occupied Palestinian territory. And the report is titled, "Threshold Crossed. Israeli policies constitute a crime of apartheid and persecution." So how did you see that report? And in what sense it is important for the world to understand that Israel, not a democracy, but it is a colonial entity?
Yes, well, it's I of course congratulate, and we are very happy for that statement. Finally, but of course, it is only one baby step in the right direction, because in truth, it's not only the crimes that they are oppressing the Palestinians; it is the crime in their mere existence. How dare they occupy and take a land of another people? And they announce to the world that they're a democracy, and at the same time, the hypocrisy is that they call themselves a Jewish state, and it's all false. It's not a Jewish state, and it's not a democracy, and it's forbidden. It is a direct rebellion against God in both issues, because we're not allowed to have a Jewish state, and they're not Jewish anyway, but if we're not allowed to have a Jewish state, even if it would be truly religious, it would be unacceptable. We would call it like a chazir, a pig with a golden nose ring, if they present themselves as a Jewish state. In other words, they use the Judaism as a facade. So that wouldn't be acceptable, and they're not a democracy, because that's also that's a hypocrisy, because obviously the oppression, the constant oppression, but not from today. From day one, from since they've been they've gone up and started to establish their kibbutzim and their settlements way before the 73 years ago. At that time, we had another chief rabbi. His name was Rabbi Sonnenfeld, and Rabbi Sonnenfeld actually met the king of Transjordan, and we have the pictures of those meetings. He stood in front together with them. I have the pictures of how the rabbi, this is in Rabbi Chazan in Gold City. I have a problem sending the pictures here, but we have they stood together, and the Jewish and Muslim and the Arab communities were living totally in peace. We babysat each other's children. This was never a concept of a religious conflict. We were distinctly Jews. The Muslim neighbors, the majority community, were Muslim, distinctly Muslim, and we lived together in peace and harmony. And we never accepted this breach that came up from the Zionist group that came up to Palestine and decided to take over the world and reinvent Judaism and making an ersatz Judaism, which is simply a political, material concept, has nothing to do with the spirituality, with the religion of Judaism. It is the antithesis, it is antithetical,
yes.
It is unacceptable, and we've been dying from day one. Our rabbis were assassinated from day one because they stood up to Zionism, not even from 1948, but from the 1920s and even earlier. They stood up and demonstrated, and on the streets of Jerusalem, they were brutally beaten and actually murdered. In fact, I was just recently, I was having an interview in Scotland, and they put up the fact that the first martyr is possibly the first famous martyr was a Jew, because in 1920s, there was a rabbi called a very famous orator, a very famous diplomat, and his name was Dr. Dahan. And Dr. Dahan was the representative of the Jewish chief rabbi, Rabbi Seinfeld of blessed memory, and he tried to give the message over to the world leaders about what was happening here in Palestine, and that they were being falsely represented by the Zionist community, by the Zionist leadership, that the Zionists tried to usurp and steal the representation. This is the picture of him, and he was assassinated. He was warned that he's going to be assassinated. He was assassinated in front of Shari Tzedek Hospital. And this took place in July 1st, 1924. The Haganah, these Zionist assassins, shot him and killed him. Here you see the funeral procession. You see the tens of thousands of people. This is the true Jewish community that was living for all these generations in Palestine. They stood on the street. They
yes, Rabbi.
Today.
And
these 100,000 still together.
Rabbi David Weiss, if I could summarize what you said, and this is the final point of our discussion, that you say, if am I right, Israel has no legitimacy to exist. Israel is responsible for shedding the blood of the Palestinians in 48, 67, and on everyday basis. But in light of the power that the Zionist movement have these days and its control over many governments around the world, how you stand up for this position and you continue to stick to your conviction and to your narrative. Though we notice that if you criticize any crime committed by Israel, you would be accused of being anti-Semite. So where you get this power from, please?
Well, as I say, the Torah requires of us to speak up when a crime is being done, especially when it is being done in our name. The chief rabbi of Palestine, who was in the 1960s, actually picked himself up and moved to the United States, and we have hundreds of thousands of people in the United States, in New York especially, who are students and followers of the chief rabbi of Palestine, Rabbi Teitelbaum of blessed memory. And by the way, they tried to assassinate him a good few times. And he insisted that we should always go out and speak up on the streets around the world and let the world know that the Zionists have stolen our name, and that is not only, it's not anti-Semitic, but on the contrary, the Zionists are the anti-Semite. They are the one that creates a rift and a hate and a mistrust between the Jews and the Arab and the Muslim people around the world and other people. They are the ones who should be accused of being anti-Semitic. And we have to clarify, they refer to it as a Jewish state in order to confuse the world and intimidate that people should not speak up against their crime because they'll be attacked as anti-Semitic. It is not a Jewish state. It should be called the Zionist state of Israel, and it is proper to attack. Let the world hear clearly that they are attacking vociferously around the world, to let the world hear, the world leaders in the government, that the support of this oppression of the Palestinian people, of this Nakba, is inhumane. We call it ungodly. It is unacceptable. In fact, I could just state that this is a picture of this rabbi who was in this picture. His actually was blinded in one eye. He lived in the city of Jerusalem. He was our representative in the Palestinian Authority, and one eye he was able to barely. He had to go to special care. We have this continually, and we are to today. I want you to know that today is actually this afternoon in front of the United Nations. There is a demonstration taking place, and they're going to be marching over in front of the Israeli consulate from the religious Jewish community, because this is a constant thing happening by us. The world does not support it because they are intimidated by the Zionists, and they constantly threaten of being anti-Semitic. But we plead with the world, do not be intimidated. Do what God wants of us, and stand in sympathy, stand in solidarity.
Yes.
Our brothers and sisters, you must do this. And God will protect us, and God will bring, inshallah, a speedy and total removal of this Nakba, of this occupation, because God writes in the Torah, why are you rebelling against me? It will not be successful. There will be a free Palestine, you will see. And our voices once again be justified and will be adjudicated. We will again be able to embrace our Palestinians and say, here is what is rightfully yours, your respect, your dignity, your homes. And inshallah, one day that will happen peacefully and speedily in our days.
Rabbi Yisrael David Weiss, it has been great pleasure talking with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I'd love to visit you in a free Palestine.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you very much for watching. And from me, Usama Nazal. Goodbye.